joining in. My name is Aaron Pegram. I'm a relatively new member to the ACT Scale Model Society, but I have been sort of lurking around the periphery for quite some time. I think I've been to about 3 meets, 4 if you included the one without power the last couple of weeks. I basically as Peter just said, my hobby or my scale model interests are wide and varied. I really enjoy building First World War 172 scale aircraft, so twin-seater variants mainly, anything that's got German lozenge pattern camouflage on there. Second World War aircraft, I was just talking about how early Second World War bomber variants from the RAF, Hamptons, Whitleys, Stirlings, Halifaxes, all that sort of stuff. Really trying to contain my collection focus to just one particular operation, Operation Millennium in May 1942, and this being the 30th year since Operation Desert Storm, the Gulf Crisis, and ultimately the Gulf War in 1990-1991. I really done a bit of a deep dive this year in terms of my model building around that. So I think this year's completion has been an F-117 Nighthawk. I've got a Seahawk in the stash, an RAN Seahawk in the stash with the appropriate decals for HMAS Sydney. And then I also had grand visions of building a warship that participated in operations during Desert Storm or participated in the Gulf Crisis. And so that kind of led me to purchasing and adding to the stash the DML kit, which is the Guided Missile Frigate, or FFG, USS Ingram, which is more or less the appropriate kit to purchase to build up a 1/700 scale model of the RAN frigates that served in the Persian Gulf and neighbouring waters, anywhere between 1990 through to the mid 2000s. So it wasn't until the club or Peter sort of launched this out of your comfort zone group build that I thought I'd sort of tackle a ship model. And the last ship model that I made was probably around the time of the Gulf War, when I was a wee lad and I butchered a 350 scale model of the Bismarck. Needless to say, it didn't end well. And so with that, I was kind of really keen to see how things would progress. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to flip my laptop down here so you guys can see on the bench a little bit clearly where I'm going and what I'm doing. So I'll just move all this out of the way. There we have the completed ship. All in all, just a couple of weeks. In 1/700 scale, the kit in itself isn't particularly detailed. It's if you're going to build it without any sort of, you can probably build it in a couple of nights. And painting is relatively straightforward for most of the RAN vessels between, I think it's from the 1960s all the way through to the mid 2000s. This is probably appropriate for that color scheme. It's the Tamiya AS18 IGN light grey, which is appropriate for the Royal Australian Navy's N42 Storm Grey. Of course, using these little sort of spray cans, it's you don't get the sort of the matter of control as what you normally would for if you're pumping out of your airbrush. So I was decanting that straight into a plastic cup, tipping that into my airbrush, and going to town on that. So, like I said, the build was relatively straightforward. I got the kit that actually has the photo etch within it. I think the only aftermarket items that I acquired for it was the decals, which were specific for HMAS Adelaide, which I just got off eBay. Neil, I think McDonald, I think, is the guy who makes those. And the other thing that I was the aftermarket item is the rigid hull inflatable boat, which is this tiny little thing down here. When I was having a look at period photographs of Adelaide, using photographs on the Australian War Memorial's website, it was actually quite unique to see those, because it was the first time in which those tiny little sort of vessels were used by the Royal Australian Navy. Operation Damask, and this deployment specifically was also another massive one for the Royal Australian Navy, because it was the first operational deployments of the Seahawk helicopters. So quite a significant sort of deployment for the Royal Australian Navy. It was Adelaide, Darwin, and the replenishment oiler HMAS Success that deployed on that one for Op Damask in August 1990. But of course, when I was posting photographs of my up-to-date, everybody was taking interest in how I was doing the water effects. I claim not to be an authority on this. I'm sure there's a myriad of different ways in which people can go about, doing a water-based scenery to enhance their display of their ship builds. I just simply followed a YouTube video from a guy in Turkey who has a really interesting channel called Scale a Ton. Koki Rahman is the guy who runs it. And I just, when I'm not at work and sort of looking after kids and all that sort of stuff when I'm at home, I'm usually sort of on my phone or popping on one of those YouTube videos to learn new sort of tips and techniques. And that was one that really stood out to me. It's something that doesn't involve resin. In fact, I was actually quite surprised on how simple and effective it was. So you don't necessarily need to have resin or any of that sort of stuff to complete a water effects. In fact, all you need, and I'll show you as we progress throughout this tutorial, simple ingredients: kitchen foil. You need PVA glue, a nice base. I think I picked up this little timber display base from Spotlight about 10 years ago. It's been sitting here in my garage ever since. So I finally found a good use for it. And a couple of other specific little items which you can easily pick up from either an arts and crafts shop or, like everybody else, buying stuff on eBay. So how do we start with something like this? I think another thing that really drew me to this display base, as I said, how simple and effective it was. You don't need to spend a whole ton of money buying stuff that, you might use once or twice. Not that that's ever a consideration for me. I'm quite happy to throw my hard-earned, and we were just talking before about aftermarket stuff, but I really wanted to try and keep this as simple and effective as possible. So there's a couple of little challenges that were involved in this little build, and I'm quite happy the way it all turned out. So I've got a couple of little demonstration aids. First off, just an ordinary piece of polystyrene. Like I said, I used a piece of timber, but this polystyrene, which you'll get in any sort of white goods box if you're buying new TVs or coffee machines or whatever, it's actually quite difficult to get rid of this sort of stuff. It's usually when you buy stuff like a TV, you get metric tons of this stuff. So I always keep a little bit on hand just for sort of scale modeling purposes. You never know when it's going to come up. Such as a tutorial, that's a really good use for this sort of stuff. And first and foremost, it just gives a really good, feel free to, start thinking about how your display might actually look. Here I have the bottom of the ship, which I actually didn't use for the Adelaide build. It's just a simple little template for a waterline model. And it's really, you could just use the hull of the ship itself. So I always try and do my displays, or anything like that with the vehicle or the model itself actually, straight on, always like on an angle to sort of give a better sense of motion and movement. So I'm just going to get a little Sharpie here and a texter. Just outline the template of where you would like your vessel to be sitting. Like that. You guys see that okay? There's a simple outline there of where your vessel would be. As I said, no sort of expensive tools or technology here. What I used in accord with this tutorial, just your regular old tin of kitchen foil. This is a really good application for scale modeling stuff. For if I'm, rather than actually buying Edward seat belts or things like that, I actually just, apply some Tamiya tape onto this sort of stuff and then sort of cut it out. And I find that's really good for seat belts for scale model aircraft, and for the purpose of this demonstration, for creating texture for your C bases. The good thing about your kitchen foil is that when you kind of not scrunch it up, but it's very easy to create texture forms just by manipulating the surface, scrunching up just enough and releasing it just to get a good sense of, there we go. This is the sort of stuff that you're after here. It's very easy to do. And what you're trying to do is capture a surface that is very similar to water. And always imagine, you know, if I'm sort of, you know, flying and coming into land and you're sort of flying over water, you always catch the sun across the ocean. Always, well, that's what I was trying to replicate when I was trying to do this, that kind of look. And that's simple as effective as that. That's what you're trying to achieve. But to start off with, back to our piece of polystyrene, you only just need a small little bit. And what we're going to try and do is glue some elements, some kind of raised sort of elements around our polystyrene, around our template here. Just creating little forms like this. What I'm just going to do, I did have a little palette here, which I'm going to use to decant some regular PVA glue or wood glue. Great stuff, myriad of modeling applications, from gluing canopies, you know, temporarily gluing on sort of, you know, bombs and missiles and various other bits and pieces. But for the purpose of this, what we're going to be doing, decanting a bit of glue into a little tub. It's all water-based, so it's a nice, easy cleanup. What we're going to do is just very haphazardly just dollop that onto the polystyrene there and stick down without any finesse our little sort of form that we made previously there. Now, what we want to try and do is getting some sort of, I guess, variation to just a simple sort of scrunched up piece of tin foil. You may just even want to just kind of just dump on here some raised elements like that. And so what we want to try and do is cover this whole base around that template there with various bits and pieces of kitchen foil. You know, like I said, doesn't necessarily have to be neat, doesn't necessarily have to be fine. Look, you don't even using your finger for this sort of stuff is perfectly fine. I kind of feel like I'm on Art Attack here. Well, that Bob Ross guy in the States who used to do his painting online, on the TV, I mean. Anyway, so you continue with that for a little while. Here's one I prepared earlier. What you're trying to do is just basically build up that tin foil completely around that that template cutout. The real once you've done that, the real benefit of the tin foil is that you know, you kind of need I guess a blending coat, I guess. And so what I did, just really dump this stuff on there. It might be easy if I do it this way. Really just kind of dump the whole bunch of PVA glue on there. And just gently just stick a completely fresh sheet on top. And you can already see some of that kind of formwork below really starting to stick out a bit. All right, you can see around here, we start seeing some of the formwork there. Nice little crinkles there in the foil. You know, you just might want to manipulate it a bit. I think the benefit with the foam is that it's actually got a little bit of give within it, so you can sort of manipulate the foil even still, where you think that, you know, things aren't necessarily, you know, looking a lot sort of crinkle a bit enough, like that, and so on and so forth. The other little demonstration aid that I've got here is what, it's a bit difficult to see under this light actually, but what I've done is once that next step, what I did was a whole layer of wood glue completely over the surface. Despite the fact that you've actually got a surface layer of tin foil, some of the ridges and recesses are still too sharp. The benefit of the wood glue is the fact that it kind of dulls those down a little bit. And it's almost that's really sort of thick consistency is what is really good for sort of dulling that stuff down. What I've done between that and this is simply hit it once everything's dry with a layer of surface primer white, and there is pretty much the basis for the the display before painting. You still got your template there. You might want to remark that out to get it probably in lead pencil rather than a Sharpie or something like that. But from there on in, it's all about painting. You've created enough rough texture there. You can see like I'm pushing into the styrofoam, still creating more ridges, more texture. There you go. And from that point on, it's all about painting. Do you guys want me to sort of paint this up, or do you want me to kind of just talk it through? How am I going for time?
I think we're
happy for whatever time you can give us, Aaron. So yeah, whatever you want to do, mate.
All right. Basically, in terms of paints, there's really sort of just kind of three paints you kind of really need. The Tamiya XF17, which is sea blue. Speaks for itself. Looks like oceanic waters. X23, which is your clear blue. This is probably the most important element of all, because this is the one that actually gives it some depth and variance to the paint job. And following up is X22 clear, which is making sure that once all those coats are all dry, you got that sort of really nice glossy finish thereafter. So sea blue speaks for itself. Clear blue also kind of speaks for itself, and some gloss clear. I was able to do, even though I'm in Jerrabomberra on the other side of the border here in New South Wales. Big shout out to the folks at Toy World Canberra. I put an order for these in. At about, I think it was about 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. And then even though, we're unavailable to do the click and collect sort of function, I had a courier knock on my door within 12 hours with this sort of stuff. So a big thank you for the folks at Toy World for sorting me out for that. All right. So I'm just going to load up very quickly just a little bit of that sea blue into the airbrush. Always use Mr. Leveling, the leveling thinner here. Even though I'm using it with Tamiya acrylics here, I just find it's so much smoother. All my paint jobs are so much smoother. Let's give this a bit of a shake. The other benefit of actually watching a whole ton of YouTube videos, you actually get to see how other modelers do stuff, like simple things like loading paint into their airbrush and decanting stuff and all that sort of stuff. And I actually learn a heck of a lot. Getting that to a good consistency. All right. Might just put the lid back on that, otherwise it's going to be tears later. All right. Now we're not completely going for full coverage with our sort of primed base, because I actually kind of liked a little bit of white peeking through for a little bit of tonal variation. So I'm just going to start doing some little squiggles like this. Compressor's kicking in, so I'm sorry if that's, noisy for you guys? Nothing fine here. No finesse. You start to see that sort of on these sort of little sort of crinkly bits down the bottom here, the white is really standing out on some of the ridges. I think that was a kind of cool, happy little accident. Because when we go over with our with our clear blue, you'll see how that works. Make that pop. Oh, it's probably a little bit too much there. That's all right.
Loving this. That looks really good.
Oh, good. Excellent. Like I said, I don't profess to know what I'm doing. It's just something that kind of just simply just worked for me. And I always looked upon doing water effects with a sense of trepidation because it involves, you know, chemicals and pretty expensive stuff. And, you know, you got one part of this, an extra part of that. You know, epoxy resin has a, you know, habit of heating up and melting stuff. I'll give it a go one day. You know, it's probably, maybe it's another tutorial for once I learn it. But, yeah. All right. Might just try and dump the rest of what's in the airbrush here, just randomly. I have to say, to me, it really kind of nailed the sort of, you know, nail on the head with this color. It actually does look like a really good water color for that sort of deep sort of ocean blue. If I was to go back and do another water display base, I'd probably do some like lighter effects around the base of the template, around this area around here, where the base of the ship would be sitting, to give a good sense of perhaps a little bit of white water that's beneath the surface of the water. Probably using a blue or green, but you know, we learn from these sorts of things. There we go. Fairly simple, fairly rudimentary, no sort of bells and whistles. I'll just quickly clean the airbrush here. I also, when I'm flushing out my airbrush, I use the sort of super cheap automotive acrylic thinner. Man, it's hot, but it does a really, really good job of doing what it purports to do. So I've yet to mix it with any of the stuff that I've got here. I think it might be a bit too hot. Certainly, I had a piece of towel with some of it on it the other day, and I inadvertently put my phone on it, and I found that just within a matter of minutes, it actually melted through some of my mobile phone case. So probably should be.
What does it smell like, Aaron?
It's pretty pungent. I only use a little bit just to clean out the airbrush itself. The next on the wish list for the setup that I've got here is an extraction system.
Yeah, I'm well. I'm watching a video at the moment. Yeah.
Welcome aboard. All right.
Mute your microphone, Graham.
Okie doke. So next up is the Tamiya Clear Blue.
Yeah, no, that'd be fine, mate. That'd be great. Be good to see you.
There we go.
Oh no, that's fine, Danny. No, not at all, mate. No, I'm a member of the ACT Scale Modelers, and they're having an online
Graham Carter.
Yeah,
Earth
it's
to
been
Graham
good, actually.
Carter.
I've been on it
Mute
for
your
the last
microphone.
3 or 4 hours and chatting away with a few people and showing off models and products.
Yeah, show me you able to do that.
Produce a sea base for a ship. So
There we go. All right.
all right, mate. Well, I'm sitting in the front room, so I can look.
All right. So Clear Blue's all loaded up.
I'll come out and say hello.
Welcome aboard, Graham. Okie doke. So here we go.
Danny. Yeah,
You can see a lot of bit of that white peeking through in nice sort of little bits of tonal variation there. And without kind of just really kind of just dumping that straight over the top. I'm just in white mists.
Just remind us, Aaron, this is the Clear Blue, is it?
Yeah, this is Clear Blue. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. There we go. Jeez, yeah, she's starting to get a bit fuming here now. So hopefully you guys can see that kind of the effect that that's having here on the on that sea blue. It's sort of giving it an extra dimension of depth, which, you know, is what you want for water effects. Instead of starting to get some nice blue tones coming through, so like that variation that just matching nice and neatly with the patterns within the foil. So can you guys see that? All right.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, looking good.
There we go. Now this is probably a layer that you can kind of really afford to go to town with. That's just one coat, but I think with the Adelaide build, I think I ended up doing about 5 or 6, mainly for a whole host of different reasons. But I started mucking around with sort of green tones and things, and using clear greens and clear yellows. Wasn't kind of happy with it, so I ended up sort of just dumping more, you know, sea blue and clear blue. So that'll let that sit there for, you know, a little while. Probably, you know, I'll let that sit for a couple of hours before I'd end up sort of hitting it with some clear gloss. But after that, that's pretty much about it. You seal it off with some clear gloss and you let that sit for at least 24 hours. I kind of find with this clear gloss, it takes a good while for it to dry, but when it does, it's practically bulletproof. So you know, you're probably already using it for some of your other models. I'm relatively new to this because I've always used you know, other acrylics, other varnishes. So like your Vallejo acrylics and all that sort of stuff. So I'm really loving this stuff, but it works particularly well for this. So once you've got that all sorted, you know, you are hopefully ending up something that looks a little bit like this, the water effects on this. The only other thing to do is these kind of white water effects. Now, I mucked around a fair bit with this and experimented. The guy on the YouTube video recommended you know, a few things, you know, just simply, you know, dry brushing, you know, because you've actually got some nice, neat little ridges and things here. But I used this product. I wouldn't necessarily worry about the brand so much, but it's heavy gel medium. And what this is kind of a bit, it's got the same look and consistency of PVA glue. But what it does, artists usually apply this to their palette. They add a bit of acrylic paint to it, so they're actually forming a bit of texture. But that's exactly what we used here. I used a little bit of this sort of stuff straight out of the tube. It dries clear, much like PVA glue. I'm almost certain that half the stuff that Vallejo and MIG and Ammo and all those sorts of stuff that are actually billing as whitewater effects is just this sort of stuff. It's what artists have been using for donkeys. So what I did was just using a stippling motion with an old paintbrush, just kind of dabbing down where you would expect to find white water, principally around the base of the warship, but then also these crests over here as well. Now, I was using reference photos because obviously, the crests and white water will depend on the speed of the ship, how it's sitting in the water, its propulsion, all that sort of stuff. So I was just basing off, photographs I found on the internet and replicated what I saw here. Once the heavy gel medium had dried, I then did some dry brushing with some white. And then I actually used a little bit of clear blue around the base there to get that sort of white water effect that's happening beneath the surface. And then I had this other product that I've had sitting on the bench for years. I've never really used it, as these kind of micro balloons. This kind of filling stuff comes in you guys may or may not already know about it. It kind of looks like a sort of, it's very fine powder. I was only sort of using it sporadically for filling, but it only suddenly dawned on me that you're actually supposed to add a little bit of water to it, and it sort of adds into a bit of a paste. I sort of experimented with that because it looked as though when it cleared dry, it cleared bright white, and much like the acrylic, the heavy gel medium, it had that nice texture to it. And so that's pretty much what I did here. I just basically pushed and pulled it around the base of the model. You can sort of see it particularly around this area here. Just dabbing it on with a paintbrush, never in sort of like, long sort of, I should probably show you what I'm doing here rather than motioning it. Not sort of like this, but just kind of this little dabbing technique like this, and it takes a few hours to dry. So you can actually push it and pull it in various directions depending on what sort of effect you're after. Particularly what I was after was this kind of this kind of white water effect at the back of the ship to keep a good sense that the boilers are thumping and the ship is in motion. So once that was all done, I tried not to play with it too much, or for fear of buggering it up. But that's pretty much it. It's a fairly simple, straightforward way of doing water, and a simple way to sort of tackle your ship model. So if you haven't sort of built a ship model for a while, like I had since I last butchered the Bismarck, I highly recommend it. It certainly got me out of my comfort zone. It got me into an area that I'd quite surprised myself with the results, and I'll see myself returning to, probably in the near future. I don't know. I've got a HMAS Anzac sitting in the stash there from Dodo Models. But maybe I should have a look at the other DML kit relating to the Persian Gulf. My theme there. There's HMAS. Well, there's the Perth class guided missile destroyers. So as would be appropriate for Brisbane, that deployed in 1991. Folks, that's about it. If you've got any questions or anything like that, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you, Cheers.
No, that was good, Aaron. I really enjoyed that. That was well explained, easily seen. Yeah, awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. That was awesome.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's Bruce.
What I might do is I'm going to I'll share the link to that online tutorial to scale a ton, Coach Rahman's online video that has a look at how to do it. I use it as a rule of thumb to just basically get the rudiments of sort of how to tackle the problem. But feel free to obviously use your own creative license and whatever looks good for you.
Yeah. Oh, Aaron, I've done that was very, very interesting because I've been fiddling around with different water effects as well, and I haven't tried that. That's been on the to-do list. Some of the things that I've used has been the lightweight hydrocal, So you mix it as a plaster of Paris, so you can mould your bit. The other one you're talking about gel was the AK Pacific Blue on that. Yeah. The only thing with this is if you can never get the lid off.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard. What I've done, one of this is a shanty in the English Channel, and so I had to mould.
Oh wow!
The box was a pretty old Airfix model, which is pretty crummy. That was just built straight out of the box, so there's no refinement in the actual parts. So it had a bit of a rough C, and I thought, I'll draw a rough C.
That's really rough C.
So that's either side there that it's come up. So it came up quite well. And in fact, there was an article. This was the Battle of Ile-de-Bras in the English Channel, and it was the 10th Flotillas Fleet, and they sank 3 German destroyers that night. And I found an article, and it said, actually, it started off as a dark and stormy night. So that's that one. I've got, there's another couple. This one is of I can't get the top off. That one's of the hood.
Oh, brilliant.
And I decided to build it, 5 minutes before it sank. So that's the first round of the Bismarck.
Oh, nice.
On the front.
That was great. Uncle was one of the 3 survivors.
Yeah, and again the same thing was just with a paste and just a brush, and then sort of experimenting around with different colours to try and get something that looks right.
And I think that's about it. There isn't a kind of like a one way to do water effects. It's all about experimenting. And I think that's what I kind of like about it. You'll develop your own techniques, and you'll stick to that with but you'll vary your techniques left and right. There just doesn't seem to be one surefire way of doing water effects, and I think that's what I like the beauty of it. It's not as intimidating as what it initially seems.
And apparently, toothpaste is very good for using white water right around the hull. I've never tried it, but I'm told that it is. I know it's a hell of a problem to get out of a carpet if you drop it in the carpet.
And it will make your build smell minty fresh.
Yes. Yes. No, it's interesting. I think for if you've got 1/700 waterline ones, that if you can put another way I've seen, I haven't tried it, is if you can get the glass that's used in the old shower screens that used to be rippled.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so if you paint the underneath of it, and turn it over, it's meant to be. I think Tamir actually had an ocean glass at one stage, but that's unavailable now.
Yeah, right. I think it's something like that would be really simple and effective to do. If you had a base and it was already kind of like a sort of a gloss.
Yeah.
To actually use that gel medium, and also some of the stuff that you just showed up, that kind of Atlantic water effect sort of stuff, using that stippling motion all throughout, and it'll clear, it'll dry relatively clear, and you'll have that nice depth to it as well.
Yeah, I've used the last one I did. I tried with this Montmartre modelling paste.
Yep.
I wasn't that happy with it. I think probably initially you put on you actually have to use very thin layers on it, and I put the model on, so I was going to model a paste around it, and that was all right. Everything dried apart from what was under the model, so that was a learning experience. So put your
actually,
model
that was one thing I actually didn't cover in that tutorial, was actually the point in which you actually glue the model to the base. I used Mod Podge. This this sort of stuff. Talk about Wi-Fi. This is, I actually have no idea what this stuff is, but I think it's kind of like a French PVA substitute used for decoupage or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do need a mask for this. I kind of was experimenting with that a little bit. I use a fairly liberal amount of Mod Podge beneath the ship to glue it down, so that when you had that excess, it's actually connecting the base of the ship to the water. And again, with that stippling motion, just trying to blend things in.
Yeah.
Once that was all dry, using that gel medium sparingly around the sides, because you don't want a ship that's completely detached from the water below.
No. I've had one where it that was in a it was actually a fishing ship up on it's being cleaned, and anyway, I remember this was at the Canberra show, and they apparently picked it up and sort of turned it upside down, and the boat actually fell off. So anyway, that was made out of card actually, so at least I could put it all back together again.
Right.
I've got a Titanic up there. I might show you.
I kind of I've been kind of keen to again build another Titanic since I sort of gave it another little bloke. What's probably the best kit of the Titanic? It seems that there's thousands of them out there. I'm sure that there's a preferred option.
Yes, just to pick up models certain ways. I'll just take this off.
Oh wow!
This one cost me $2.
Wow.
And then I've done the water. And interesting on that, the order was hardest starboard. That's right, given to the when they were trying to avoid the iceberg. Now the question is, starboard is the right side. Why would you turn your rudder to the left?
Oh yeah.
The answer to that is that they used to use the old tiller directions. So if you want to turn right, you push your tiller to the left, you push your tiller to the right. So that's starboard. So it was always a reverse way, but that's the reason on that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but it cost me $2. No, sorry, I bought it $12. It was just a cardboard kit in a book.
Yeah.
Made it, and then I was down at Vinnie's or one of those once, and I walked through and I said, "Oh, look!" They were just unpacking some stuff, and they actually had it's a German product, and they had another one there, so I got it for $2. But having made one, that's enough.
Yeah, well, $2, you certainly got your money's worth straight away. That's
yes. Yeah. That's good. Anyway,
sorry, Aaron.
But
what scale were you interested in the Titanic?
Oh, that's 1 in 200.
Well, that's 1 200. I think 1 700 kind of works for me. Just in terms of I've got limited storage here at home, and I kind of like while my eyes are still pretty good. Fitting around in those smaller scales.
The Academy has done several releases of the Titanic in 700 scale, and they actually revised their tooling a couple of times.
Cool.
In the most recent retooling, they turned it into a multi-color plastic release. So the plastic's actually pre-colored into something that resembles what he is in real life. So you look for the kit, say at Toy World, you'll find that there's the MCP, multicolored plastic release. They use a release of that with an LED lighting kit inside.
Yeah, I've seen that at Toy World. Yeah,
I've got that release and I'm quite impressed with it. It looks like something very easy to build. The hull's in two pieces, but it's in bottom and top. It's not left and right, so,
I
so
see.
it actually
Yeah.
slots in quite easily and gives you the option of doing waterline should you want to.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So
Yeah, I've seen the MCP kits there, but kind of, I don't know. I'd be more inclined to kind of paint my own, like a layer, like just do my own.
most certainly, certainly, I will not be leaving it unpainted because the plastic still looks like plastic.
Yeah.
But it's more the engineering of the kit itself rather than the plastic was colored plastic molding that impressed me. In fact, the orange on the funnel is way too orange anyway. In the kit, but those who want to do a bit more than what the kit provides, I would suggest a little bit of modification of lighting kit just to not have the thing light up like a fish tank. Yeah, because it's an empty hull with lights inside it, so it lights up like a lantern actually. My guess. So you may want to put some partitions and things to make the lighting more realistic. The other, for those who, there's of course aftermarket stuff like photo edge and decking and stuff like that. You need to work out whether you really want to go that far. But the kit provides nice basics. It's inexpensive and looks very, very modern in terms of tooling.
Cool. Yeah, I've been really impressed with all the latest sort of Academy retooling stuff. You know, I remember Academy not being so great, several decades ago, but really sort of turned things around with their sort of really new tool stuff. I've built their Academy, the Academy Hornet in 72 scale, and that was just a beauty. You just basically shake the box and it all falls together. It builds itself. I'll have to check out that Titanic. But I promised myself no more purchasing of kits this year. I've got to build the ones that I've got, or build some of the ones that I've got. So, the more that I clear, the more I can purchase.
Yeah, no, I think Amati has also got that's being wood, has a Titanic. I've got someone gave it to me and I thought, I don't know if I'll ever build this one. That's a 1 in 2,000 Titanic. That's an all metal one.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I've seen those.
And there's your instructions. They get.
Wow.
But I think that's getting past my eyesight well and truly.
Good practice for photo etch.
Yeah. Scale for the Titanic will be determined by how much room you have for the iceberg, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now Leo Capri is on the bow on that ship. Leo DiCaprio.
Guys, something I was just going to offer on the sea bases. Really enjoyed that, Aaron. Thank you.
Cool.
Obviously, you've got to think a little bit about scale effect. So, what scale is the model you're doing? And a technique I saw, again, on YouTube a little while ago for larger scale stuff was to use clear silicon and dab that on. So I'll show you this one that I knocked up very quickly a few years ago. And it was the old Matchbox Walrus. And that's just clear silicon out of the $3 tube from Bunnings.
That's good. That's really
yeah, and because it's sticky, I just put it on with a couple of paddle pop sticks. So you gooped it on into the base, and then kind of stirred it around with the paddle pop sticks, and then hit it with white paint over the top. And for the 72nd scale, it worked quite well. I wouldn't do it for a smaller subject, but for 72, just for that quick, that was like a blitz build almost. That technique worked really well.
You're right. Scale obviously depends on the sort of level of detail you want to sort of drill into a water base. That white water effect sort of thing. I'm really keen to see what sort of silicon that you use for that and some larger scale. This looks like really good stuff. The 700 scale, I've seen other people just use cotton wool. They stretch the cotton wool out and get it nice and wispy. And they use that for the white water that falls off the bow of the ship. That's another way to do it. It just almost seems as if, the big model companies have all these products that, you can spend an ordinary amount of money you're getting all this sort of stuff. You know, a $3 tube of silicone, you know, kitchen foil, all this sort of stuff. There's already this sort of stuff laying around in most people's garages anyway, or kitchen drawers, to give water effects a good hard go.
Yeah. It can be quite satisfying modelling on the cheap sometimes.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it saves up my discretionary spending for other things. Maybe like those Desert Storm decals we were talking about before.
Yeah, enjoyed the preso. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, Aaron, sorry, it's Craig here. I used that Scale-a-ton method as well about a year ago.
Yep.
And sorry, I'll just turn the camera around. I did it on a sub, and I found that about 6 months down the track, when I went and had another look, all the white glue had peeled back.
You're right.
So it's all contracted, and it's come, if you can see here, it's just taken all the paint and the glue with it off the foil.
Yeah, right. Wow.
That could be my error, that I just didn't let it cure long enough.
Yeah.
But it's, it's formed a lot of, if you can see them here, air bubbles under it as well.
Yeah.
So I think, depending how thick a coat of white glue you put on it, or PVA, you really have to be careful on the curing time.
Yeah.
Side of caution and leave it a week or so. I think I left it about 3 days, which I thought would be plenty for just plain old PVA glue.
Yeah, PVA glue, yeah.
But as I said, it turned up a treat when it was just finished. But 6 months down the track, as you can see all around the edges, it's just...
Yeah, it kind of let it sort of, yeah. Well, look, I'm happy to report back and see if anything happens to mine. But
yeah, I'd be
your
issue
is not with sanding.
This technique again, so...
Those your PVA issues notwithstanding, that's an incredible build. That looks fantastic.
I'll send you some pics of when I first finished it. It's a lot better than it does now, I can tell you.
Yeah, those breaking waves onto the bow as she posts are just amazing.
Hey, just quickly, if you want. And as you said, that's just done with cotton.
Early car.
So that's cotton.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
And the wet effect on the
sounds good. Cheers.
you were talking about.
Say bye.
Yeah. Yep. That's great.
But, so just
he's moving.
I'd be keen to know.
Almost like he's moving
down the track if you have that same issue.
Yeah. Well, look, like I said, I'll report back and tune in. But for the other modelers, like, feel free to comment on report on the Facebook group if you're on Facebook, just to let people know that that's how you did it. So I'll post that Scale-a-ton thing. But modelers beware, this could happen to you.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, mate, thank you. And yeah, really good presentation. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks for tuning in.
No worries. Did anyone that was on earlier today miss Craig spoke about another way he done his sea base for his latest Japanese carrier? Was anyone that missed that this morning that would want to have a quick look at that?
Yeah, I missed that this morning. I'd be keen to check it out.
Yep.
All right then. Thanks, Pete. I'll just switch my video back on and.
Yeah, thanks, Craig.
There's the Suikaku down. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Wow.
Pretty much finished.
Now it makes sense for all those little planes on the end of a finger.
Yeah, there's crew in there amongst them too. So I don't know.
Oh, get out! Really?
Yeah.
Did you just get a few ants from the back garden?
Little figures.
Yeah, that was nice.
Oh, they're painstaking and tedious. But back to the water. So this is just. So I'll start off with. Where is it? An XPS foam base. So that's what this is here. There's my finger. So it's about 1 inch thick. Just. You buy big sheets of it from Bunnings for about $10 or $15. I think it's about 1 metre by 1 metre or something. And very similar to you, Aaron. You then just, sorry, I'm covering up the camera there. Sorry, guys. Just a sheet of foam, draw the outline of the hull. if it's a waterline hull in this case. And then I use, sorry, bear with me, just watercolor paper.
Ah, yeah.
Give a bit of, I don't know if you can see that in this light, it's a bit hard. A bit of sort of ripple texture to it.
Yep. Yep.
And then following that, it's just several different coats of different coloured blues and greens, and add a bit of white and a bit of green there just to get some tonal variations. And as you can see, you get the sort of shadows and deeper bits, and sun passes by the clouds, and where they land, the shadows fall, the water looks darker, etc. And then once you finish the paint, I used this stuff. So my same as yours, Bruce, except mine's the Atlantic. I didn't have the Pacific, so I just made do. No one called me on it, I don't think. So, and you put that on with a spatula. You get a stiff bristle brush, and just sort of dab at it, pecking motion to get the sort of wavelets that you can see here. And then you just use your airbrush with just air to sort of get that movement in the one area, so that they sort of blend in and gel together. And then it's just a matter of your ship's ready. Glue it to the foam base where you've cut it out, and then tidy it up by putting some gel medium in the gap, so that you're not left, as you said, Aaron, the ship sort of floating above water. You blend it into the base, and then just tighten it up with a bit of that micro balloon stuff that you had.
Fantastic. That looks amazing.
And then you make it heavier around the wake and up around the bow here.
Yeah.
So that's there's so many different ways of doing it.
Yeah. That's really effective. And even though you use an Atlantic blue, that actually the blue there looks quite Pacific. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. I mixed more green in with it, so I did sorry, bear with me. A tiny U-boat last year, I think, or the year before.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that's without the lighter colours in it. It's a bit darker, but exactly the same technique.
That's great.
But it's time. It takes time. You need patience to do it. But I think the results speak for themselves. It's well worth the effort.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that the whole hobby is about time and patience. It's about how you sort of steer it in the right direction. But no, this is certainly motivating me to build more ship models. That's for sure.
Yeah, and like you, I mean, I haven't had the balls yet to try working with resin. So
yeah,
it's on my list. But I figure I'll get more experience doing other stuff.
That's great.
Start playing with resin. But so I should have this. Anyway, I'll turn the video off.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for tuning in. I'm sure you've got other sort of things to chat about throughout the course of the afternoon. I'm going to have to duck off and tend to a 3-year-old who should be having his afternoon nap at the moment, but I don't think he is. But look, thanks Pete for the opportunity, and thanks to Peter for steering me through the tech yesterday, and thank you all very much for tuning in. I look forward to sharing more hobby tips and seeing more of your builds in the near future. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.
Huge thank you to you.
Yeah, thanks,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Cheers, mate.